Hello, my name is Jim Blackburn, and this is really the first of a two-part series in ethics and professionalism. There's a third hour as well that's on mental health. Now, this particular program is entitled Starting Over Today. It's a really totally new program that's been approved by the North Carolina State Bar. It's approved for lawyers and therefore automatically also approved for paralegals. Now, in order for this to be interactive, which is required by the bar, I have to give you some information. First, if you have any questions while you are watching this program, please call me at area code 919-326-9070, 326-9070, or at my cell phone number, which is also the same area code, 919-889-7316, 889-7316. Or you can email me at jim@blackburnseminars.com. That's jim@blackburnseminars.com. Now, in addition to that, in order to make this interactive and ensure that you have actually seen the program that the bar wants you to see, what I will do during the course of the hour is ask you 3 random questions. They're not difficult questions at all. They have to do with the content of what you're watching and listening to. You don't know when they're going to come, so you can't really go ahead because you may have skipped it. So you have to watch pretty much the whole program for the hour to catch the questions, and then email them to me or call me with the answers to let me know that you have actually seen these questions and answers. Now, with that in mind, let's get started. This is a new taped program. It's really based upon a compilation of events that happened in my life more than 20 years ago when I was a practicing lawyer and right after I quit practicing law, and also things that I have learned in the last 10 years that I've been doing continuing education programs for lawyers and paralegals in this and other states, taking some of the examples and questions that people have and trying to make it more of a general discussion about the law practice. The title of this program, Starting Over Today, is with the concept that no matter what you have done yesterday or last month or a year, you have today the opportunity to begin all over again. I used to say that when I waited tables at 42nd Street Oyster Bar in Raleigh, that one of the nice things about that was that every day you got to start all over. You had new tablecloths that were clean, dishes, food, customers, the whole 9 yards. And so it seemed to me that that was really a great job from that point of view. I used to say that lawyers really couldn't do that because your work and paralegal work continues over from one day to the next, or week or month to the next. But you know, that's not really true in terms of how you handle your clients in your legal work. You can start that all over today. That's just so it's a new day. And so that's what I want to talk about in this hour and hopefully the next hour after that. First, let me give you a little background for those of you who do not know. For a little more than 20 years, I was a practicing lawyer. I started out my career in the State Attorney General's office, where I stayed for 8 years, way too long, but 8 years. I then went to the United States Attorney's Office in Raleigh, where I was an assistant U.S. attorney for about 2.5 years, and then acting United States Attorney for about 1.5 years. Appointed to that position by Chief Judge Franklin Dupree at that time. After that, I went into private law practice with a young lawyer who had been an intern in our office and graduate of Campbell Law School, Rick Gammon, who's gone on to a really successful legal career on his own. And he and I practiced law for 2 or 3 years together. We separated. I was by myself for a couple of years, and then joined a really great law firm with offices in Raleigh, Charlotte, and Greensboro for about 5.5 years. I quit practicing law in January of 1993 and have not practiced law since that time. I turned in my license to practice law in April of that year as well. Now, I need to say that people often say, well, you voluntarily turned your license to practice law in. Well, that's both true and not true. Nobody turns their license in voluntarily when they'd rather keep it, which I did. Nobody does that. But I was basically forced to do that by my own actions, not by the actions of anybody else, by misconduct and mistakes that I made in the last 1 to 2 years of my law practice. I used to say, and I still do believe, that one of the most important assets that anybody can have in the practice of law is the character trait of passion. That is to say, really enjoying what you're doing and doing your best at it and trying really very hard. Passion. And for a good time of my life and career, I really had it. I enjoyed being a lawyer. I enjoyed practicing law. I enjoyed trying cases, talking to clients, talking with other lawyers, trying to figure things out. I really did enjoy that. It was a lot of fun. Somewhere along the line, though, I got into the trap that I created for myself of trying to be all things to all people, promising people things that for various reasons I did not or could not make come true. Or I got inadvertently careless and let things slip. Or perhaps I did not try on some cases or with clients as hard as I otherwise should. It's very ironic that in some of the cases in which I got in trouble, I spent lots of time with these clients and these issues trying to fix what was not fixable, except one way, and that was to tell these clients the truth about certain situations. Not wanting to do that because that would cause my career to crash, I kept trying to fix it, and that ultimately failed. It did not work. I got into a situation where I did things I never thought I would do. I never thought, for example, that I would take money from some clients that were due to the law firm and keep them for myself to pay other clients for work that I had not appropriately done. I never thought that I would tell clients things that were not true. I never thought that I would ever take money from the law firm's trust account on 2 occasions and send the money to other clients. I never thought that I would do that in a million years. I never thought, for example, that I would sit down at my computer and trying to make a case come out, go into fantasy land, so to speak, and create and write and draft orders that were not real and sign other people's names to these orders. I rationalized because I didn't file these orders with clerk of court because there's no place to file them, that it wasn't that harmful. I rationalized on the trust account that because I had sent the money elsewhere and not to myself, it wasn't the same thing. I know now, and have known for many years, that the thinking on my part on these matters was totally wrong. And so I want to say to you at the beginning of this program, if you are even thinking or considering doing anything like what I have just described to myself, please stop. Do not do that. There is nothing worse. There is no story that's worth telling if it is not true. There is no money worth taking if it does not belong to you. There is nothing worth writing if it is not correct and appropriate to do. And for goodness sakes, do not ever sign somebody else's name to anything. It's just stupid. And it will cost you all that you have worked most of your life and career to achieve. The fact that you may be doing well right now on the outside may not really be correct as how you're doing on the inside. It might be, but it might not be. If it's not, figure out how to fix it. And start by telling yourself the truth, looking yourself in the mirror, telling yourself the truth, and getting up and waking up tomorrow or today and starting all over again. So really what this program is about, what I really want to talk about, is not so much the past, but how the past can relate to what you're doing now or the future. Let me give you about a few minutes of personal background on how mine started on the day that I left the practice of law. I remember it really well, even though it's been so many years. It is burned into my brain that I could recount totally from memory. I went to work as I always did early one morning, got there about 8 o'clock, and made coffee for everyone, sat down in my chair and looked to see what I would do that day, and the telephone rang. And it was this lady, very nice, from a local bank in Cary, North Carolina, saying to me that I made a mistake the Friday after Thanksgiving, which was about 6 weeks before, when I called and asked her to wire some money to a client from the trust account. And I said to her that it was okay, I could work this out and I'd be back in touch with her. Well, I could not make this okay. I hoped that I would, but I could not stop this fall from happening. And so I met with a couple of my law partners within the hour, and after an unpleasant, unhappy conversation which went on for 1 to 2 hours, I walked out of the office in the building, walked downtown Raleigh, walked back, got in my car, and drove around trying to figure out what to do next. It was clear to me, that my time at that law firm was coming to an end. There was no question about that. That was clear. What was not clear to me was what was going to happen as a result of all this, or what I was going to do next. I overheard that day or the following day, I don't remember when, that one of the partners said to another lawyer, "This is the week or the day that Joan Blackburn's life was shattered." That's true. I can't pretty that up. That's true. My life as a lawyer was shattered, really beyond repair. And I want to say to you, so will yours be if you do anything comparable to what I did. I got in my car, drove around, and picked up my car telephone and called a friend of mine who was a lawyer, Wade Smith in Raleigh, and asked to meet with him. He agreed to do so. He asked me if I'd done anything criminal, and I said no. And I could have passed a polygraph on that point. I did tell him I'd done some things that I thought were pretty stupid. He asked me if I was getting ready to leave town with a blonde. And I said no. And he said, "Well, good, Jim, we can handle anything else." Well, we met in a restaurant in Raleigh, near Meredith College that day. And we talked, and he asked me to tell him the worst things that I'd done. And I said to him, "Wade, this is going to take a while." He said, "Jim, that's fine. We've got plenty of time take your time. And so I started to talk and tell him some of the things that I thought that I had done wrong. After a little while, he put his pen down, looked at me and said, "You know, your career's gone a little off track, and you need to take a rest. You need to get away from this for a while. You've been doing it for a long time. You need to perhaps to do something else, Jim." I said, "Well, look, Wade, I don't know what else I can do. I don't know what else to do." He said, "Well, you need to take a rest. But we're going to make you be okay again. This will be all right. This will take some time, but we can make this okay again." I said, how are we going to do that? He said, "I don't know right now. I don't know. But we can make this work again." This turned out to be the first meeting, the very first meeting that I ever had with a lawyer. And I was a potential client. The first. I didn't seek out that day to become a client. I didn't know that I would be one. Yet, by the end of the day, by the middle of the afternoon, that is exactly what I became. I need to say that that afternoon, everything for me was very uncertain. It was turning dark. It was scary. I had no balance, no anchor. I had a lot of fear and anxiety. And so that was the first meeting with someone who sort of tried to take my temperature and calm me down. And that's a good thing. The next day, I called a friend of mine, Rick Gammon, who I mentioned earlier in this program. He came by the law firm where I was, and I got in his car, and we drove around Raleigh for several hours. And he offered to help me then too. Rick and Wade are very different lawyers. They worked together on my behalf for a year at no pay. Very different lawyers. Very different styles. Each complementing the other, but each consistent and the same insofar as their loyalty and helpfulness to me was concerned. It's just that straightforward. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to act. I remember meeting with Rick about 10 days later in his law office in Raleigh, downtown, him telling me that he had received a letter from the state bar that would keep me essentially from retaining any client funds in the immediate future. That would effectively stop me from practicing law insofar as taking any monies, because I could, I guess, represent people for free, but that would be about it. That would shut a law practice down. And this would become public. It would be in the newspapers, and then on radio or television news. And as a result, my reputation would be damaged beyond hope, at least at that point. And so I was afraid of that, and afraid of what I should do or could do. And they were worried about keeping me safe. So as I talk about in the mental health aspect of this program, I spent time, about a week, in Duke Hospital, the psychiatric wing. And I would spend 2.5 years in therapy, very intensive therapy, with Dr. Gene Spalding, a well-known Durham psychiatrist. Taking all this as background, what have I learned from this experience, from the year that I spent as a client, and in all the years since I've been doing these programs, that I believe can help you as a lawyer or help you as a paralegal become better today than you were yesterday, that can keep you out of harm's way, that can help you have a good, healthy, and safe law practice or work in a legal system. What can I say? What can I do? It's not really difficult or revolutionary. There are not any really new ideas out there. There are not any really new rules and regulations and guidelines out there. And I can dress them all up and call them by different names. But there's not really anything new, and there's really nothing I am going to say that you have not heard before. Not one thing. So why, you might ask, do I want to watch Jim talk about these things? Because I want to tell it in a way that is personal and its effect on me and what I learned from it and why I really do believe it's the correct way to go. They're about, I don't know, 10 or 11 rules, regulations, or guidelines, or principles, call them whatever you want to, that if you follow, don't pick and choose, but follow them all, you'll be okay. And you will actually, believe it or not, enjoy your law practice, or enjoy, if you're a paralegal, working in a law firm. And they're so basic. The first one is, you need to learn how to build and keep trust with your clients and why that is so important. Secondly, with respect to these clients, you need to communicate with them truthfully and very often. Clients want, demand, and expect your individual and complete attention when you're talking or speaking with them. They want you to keep, you're required to keep, all these communications between you and the client confidential. I will talk to you about why that is so important. Do not, folks, ever overpromise what you can deliver. Never overpromise what you can deliver. That is one of the critical mistakes I believe I made. I can remember even today, clients come in to see me and I talk in the initial stages of like, well, let me look into this and I will get back with you. Have you ever said that? Let me take a few days to study this fact situation, do some reading, talk to some people, and let's get back together in a few days. But you know, in all those kind of times that I got back together a few days later, I doubt seriously that I ever said to them, well, I've looked at your case and there's no case there. I'm so sorry. I can't help you. It was generally the opposite. Well, I think I found a way to go forward and let's do this. And I did that for several reasons. One is I'm sure I wanted the case and the work of the client. I'm sure that's true. Secondly, I always wanted to please these people, to make them feel happy, make them feel comfortable, and make them think that I could do that. And that was challenging, and I wanted to do that. But I would have been so much better off if I really been very warm and cold at the same time. I said, you know, I just don't think there's a good case here. And if you want to pursue it, let me suggest where else you might go to do it. But don't take it yourself. Whatever promises you do make, whatever promises you do make, you need to be able to follow them through. You need to avoid even the appearance of impropriety. That's sort of a summary type rule. I've already mentioned this, but for goodness sakes, folks, do not ever, for any reason whatsoever, take any money from the firm's trust account or your trust account. Not even a nickel. Don't take a nickel and pay it back this afternoon. Once you break that seal, you can't put the seal back together. it's like throwing the egg off the wall and it breaks. You can't for the life of you put it back the way it was. No matter how quickly you try and do it. No matter if it was about to be an egg that was to go bad. You can't do it. And so don't even think about doing that. Don't, for goodness sakes, do not ever think about overbilling clients. Writing down time for work that you did not do. Meetings that you did not participate in. Don't do that. As I've said before, I think it's best to represent your clients with great passion, to the best of your ability, every single time you have the chance to do so. And remember that the truth is the most important asset not only you have, but also your clients have. The truth is the most important asset that you have, and also that your clients have. Now, with all of this being said, let's go back to the first one, about building trust with clients. And how do you begin to do that? You know, I think one of the first things that lawyers and paralegals should do when they have a new client is they need to shut up and listen. You need to shut up and listen. The client may be saying things that are not true, may be exaggerating. If so, let them do so. Let them get it out of the system. Just let them go. Just listen. And then, as time goes on, perhaps you can poke some holes in what they have said to you. But clients want you to listen to them. They have something to say. They are frightened, they are scared, but they have a story to tell. It may not be an accurate story, it may be a false story. But whatever it is, story they're going to tell, you need to let them tell it. And subsequently, begin to ask questions. But first, learn to listen. A lot of people have different thoughts about when you have to tell clients the truth about what their situation is. Now, this is a fine line. I understand. Let's take a look at it from a criminal case. Suppose somebody comes into your law office in a criminal matter and tells you a factual situation that clearly implicates them in some wrongdoing. Suppose it's just a small traffic ticket case as opposed to a felonious case. And you know when you're sitting across the desk or in the chair next to them that they're in jeopardy based on what they've told you. You know, for example, that if they come in and say to you that they were caught driving drunk with too much to drink and they blew a .17 or 18, they've got some real issues or problems. You know, if they say to you, they caught me running the red light, and you ask them, well, did you? And they say, well, yes. Or you failed to stop for a stop sign or something like that. Or they admit to you the felony commitment of some other more serious crime. You know right then what the probability is that they're going to have some punishment meted out to them. And they want to know right then, what's going to happen to me? Where do I stand? If you're a doctor or a lawyer or some professional and you've committed some form of perhaps malpractice or done some conduct that you shouldn't do, you know right then there may be some issues. But the truth is, you do not know on these first meetings the final analysis of what's going to happen. You just know what the client, prospective client, has told you. That is all you know. You don't know any other facts or any other circumstances, and you've done no background investigation. And so I think I would be hesitant. I'd be hesitant to say to somebody at the first meeting, this is the brutal truth of what's going to happen to you. Because as soon as you say that, you might not be correct, and you might close some doors. If you suspect that a client who's coming to see you is telling you a story that is somewhat false, how do you get that client to tell you the truth? You do it by listening, as I mentioned, and you do it by being oh so patient. And you recognize that it will take, I don't know, several meetings perhaps, before you begin to peel the skin away and the layers away to find out what in fact is the real truth. Now, I knew both my attorneys, Rick and Wade. I did know them. And so there was a degree of trust initially with them that you may not face when you see a client for the first time. And so in that sense, to use the analogy of Wade and Rick is not good. On the other hand, I will say to you, I still wanted to know what they were going to do. I still wanted them to listen. I still wanted them to do some looking into the matter and talk to other people and see where we were. I still wanted all of that done, you know. But let me use this other analogy. A couple of days after I met with Wade, I met with Dr. Jean Spalding, the Durham psychiatrist, in her office on a Friday afternoon. I had never met her before, and she would ask me far more questions that were personal in nature than Wade or Rick ever did. She would want to know more about me than they ever asked. They wanted to know about the circumstances that led me to commit the legal wrongs that I did. Dr. Spalding wanted to know about personal issues that were very difficult to explore, the ones that I perhaps tried to keep private all these years. She didn't know me, we had no relationship. And yet, after a period of a few sessions, we began, slowly, to develop a level of trust. Here, I think, is how she did it. Again, she listened. She took some notes. She sat in a chair next to me as opposed to the desk across the way. There was no barrier between the two of us. At some point in there, she leaned over to me and told me she wanted to help me. She wanted to be on my side, and that whatever I told her, she would keep private. She would keep in confidence. She would not tell anyone what I said to her unless I told her it was okay. All of those statements by her began to make me relax. And so I would say to you, this first meeting, this first time with a lawyer, with a client, is so tremendously important, where I think you need to earn or begin to earn or build the trust relationship that you have with that client. You do so by being knowledgeable about your area of the law. You do so because you're a good listener. You're, to some degree, cautiously optimistic that you can help this person. Why would you take someone's case as a client if you did not think you could help them? Why on earth would you become their lawyer? That doesn't mean that they get off or get away with whatever problems they're having. It doesn't mean that they're the plaintiff, they're going to absolutely win and recover lots of money. What it means is that you're going to do the best that you can for them. And you want to give them hope. You want them to feel okay about themselves. You want them to walk out of your office the first day feeling better than they did when they walked into your office at that first moment. You want to follow through with the promises that you have made. You want to call them when you say you will. Or today's world, you want to email them when you say you will. You want to arrange another meeting when you say you will. Whatever it is you say you're going to do, you need to follow through and do, or have your paralegal follow through and do. And do not delegate everything to your paralegal, because if you do, the paralegal will wind up having a better relationship with the client than you do. What a silly mistake to make, it seems to me. Building trust with clients is critically important. And you do that by being there, by being available, by responding to their questions, by taking their phone calls, not letting all the calls go into voicemail. Call them when they least expect it. Check in with them. Make every effort to be available and to give them hope. So my first question to you in this part of the program that I want you to answer and send me back an email or a phone call or something is, how do you build trust and confidence with a client? I think you build trust and confidence with a client by listening, by being there, by following through on your promises, and being available. I think that's how you build trust with a client. Now, what about the rule or the suggestion that I said, well, you need to communicate with them and you need to do so honestly. Honestly is the key word here. Makes no real difference if you call somebody every single day and check in with them and talk to them if you tell them things that are not true. Makes no difference how many phone calls you make to somebody if on those phone calls you make false platitudes or false promises. That makes it worse. Doesn't make you get no points for a lot of communication with clients. I communicate with some of my clients a lot. That was not the problem. The problem was whether or not the stories that I was telling them were true and correct stories, not false stories. It wasn't just how often I talked, but what I said when I did so. So there are two twin parts here. Communicate with your clients regularly, but to do so honestly. Tell them the truth. You can sugarcoat it and make it kind, but don't sugarcoat the truth. Tell it. So they can make an informed decision about what route they want to take or what route you want to take. Ultimately, the truth is going to come out. It just depends on whether it's sooner rather than later. And if it's sooner, you have the better chance to represent them well and to be by far a much better lawyer for them. So talk to them and do so honestly. Don't try just to please them. Don't practice a feel-good kind of law. Of course you want to make people feel good, but not at the expense of the truth. Of course you want to be there with them, but not at the expense of the truth. Of course you want to hold their hand and walk through a particular period of time with people, but again, the truth. Your job as a lawyer or your job as a paralegal is to help the client get to a better spot when the relationship is over than it was when it started, and you simply cannot do that unless you tell the client the truth. It just absolutely will not work. In my case, the first day or two that I met with Wade and Rick was nice in the sense that they gave me hope and they put their arms literally or figuratively around me and said they would help me and be there for me and took my phone calls. But what about a few days later when they finally discovered that what I had done was going to cause an SBI investigation to take place? A criminal SBI investigation to take place that would take some time. What if they were dealing with newspaper stories that were embarrassing? What if they knew early on that I ultimately would have to turn in my license to practice law as the direct result of transferring the money from the firms trust account. What if they knew that was automatic? They couldn't sugarcoat that, and they would have to tell me that those things were going to happen. I remember towards the end of my stay at Duke Hospital, I think it was a Friday, I talked with Wade Smith by telephone. He told me there was going to be a newspaper story about me the following Sunday. He said it would be a big story and that I could not stop it from happening. That I was a prominent person, a well-known lawyer. It would be big and it was news and I could not stop it. That was tough. I asked him, I said, well, do you think it will be on the front page? He said, well, Jim, yes, I do. Do you think it will be way above the fold? He said, yes, I do. He was right on both counts. Later, I read a newspaper story where Rick had said to some newspaper reporters that it was only a matter of time before Jim would turn in his license to practice law to the North Carolina State Bar. This was late January or early February, only about 2 weeks after they had started to help me. About 2.5 weeks. It did not take long for decisions about the SBI investigation, the media attention, my bar license to be said to me in very direct ways. There was no question, but that it was going to be tough. But they did not shy away from telling me. Part of me wishes perhaps that they had for a while longer, without doubt. Part of me wishes that. The other part recognizes the reality that I had no choice but for them to do exactly what they said they were going to do. And they told me the truth. And so I knew early on what was going to happen. Their advice to me right then was for everything to calm down, to take a rest, to get out of the newspapers, to be quiet. And that's what I did through the balance of February. During that month, they talked to other people. They communicated with me. I met with them. They came by the house. I went to see Dr. Spalding. I walked with them, but they did not run away. They were trying to help me. If they had something good to say, such as they had seen some lawyer or person in town who said something about how is Jim, they tried to tell me. They tried to buck me up. They wanted to know how my sessions with Dr. Spalding were going on. How was my family holding up? How was everybody taking? They checked in. They were not strangers. If you want to build a trusting relationship with your clients, don't be a stranger. If you want to build a trusting relationship, communicate with them and tell them the truth. You know, it's sort of automatic that every client wants his or her lawyer to have no other clients but them. They want to be the only one. Now, I wasn't naive. I knew they had other clients besides myself, as all lawyers do. But I do think I wanted and got individual attention. And when I spoke with them, I had their complete attention. They weren't looking to the next client. They were talking just to me. They were working just on my behalf. They were 100% there when they were dealing with me, and it was individual attention. So my second question to you is, what kind of attention do clients want from you? What kind of attention do clients want from you? And the answer is they want your individual and complete attention. Your individual and complete attention. So that's the second question. What kind of attention do clients want? Let me know that one also, to let me know that you're continuing to watch this program. Now, okay, we've gotten to the first or second or third week of our communications. They've talked to me honestly. They've kept in touch. They've begun to build trust. One of the coolest ways, though, to build trust with clients is something, I have to be honest with you, I don't think it ever occurred to me to emphasize this enough. And that is to say to my client, or you should say to your client, whatever you tell me, I will not tell anybody else. Whatever you tell me, I will not tell anybody else. We all know that the attorney-client privilege is important. It's ingrained into us. Everybody knows that what they say to a lawyer is private. But of course, there are exceptions to that. You waive the privilege under certain circumstances. But until the privilege is waived, it's there. Say to your clients, whatever you tell me, I won't tell anybody. I wish I had done that more, because I think that might have helped clients perhaps confide in me more and talk to me more in confidence. Would you yourself tell a secret to someone whom you did not know would keep it in confidence? How many people talk to the newspaper editors and writers and reporters and say, this is off the record, meaning you cannot print what I am going to tell you. So therefore, if I tell you as a client, to you as a lawyer in your office or somewhere else, it's bound, it's there. And tell that to me often. Let me know that that's important to you. I think that's one of the ways that Dr. Spalding got me to open up and reveal to her more about my personal side of my personal nature than any other way. I think that was critically important. The idea of keeping communications private and confidential. I spoke a little bit earlier about the need not to overpromise. Let me be more specific about one of the dangers, I think. I was told several years ago by a bar counselor in eastern North Carolina that he felt that the lawyers who were most susceptible to getting into trouble were young to middle-aged lawyers. That's first 10 or 12 years after law school. Because you've got financial crushing debt from school, you're trying to open up your own practice and hang out a shingle or practicing with another lawyer, and you're trying to compete with other lawyers. Competition is fierce for business, and you're trying to get business, so you're trying to advertise. You know, advertising is now appropriate and legal in North Carolina. And you go down most any town in the state, and you'll see billboards about lawyers. I'll be with you all the way. I want to help you. We're on your side, that kind of thing. All of which is okay, but there's this implication there that they will be there for you. And will they be there for you if there's no good result at the end of the day? You've got to tell people the truth. You cannot overpromise. Be so careful not to do that. If a client comes to your office or calls you on the phone and is quizzing you or asking you questions about what you do, what their circumstances are, what you think you can do for them, how much do you charge, do you go down on your price because you want to compete with a person down the street. Do you? Do you inflate your background and your expertise as to what might be possible for you to do for them? Do you do that? Do you even imply that you might be able to get a result for them that nobody else can get because of who you know, or your background, or your experience, your ability to tweak things? Can you do that? I guess lots of people puff up their wares. You don't ever see any lawyer's website that says they're not very good. You don't see any brochures that say, we're not really worth a darn. Everybody sort of puffs themselves up to make them look good or in the light most favorable to their clients or prospective clients. There's a line here you do not want to cross, and that is you do not want to overpromise. You do not want to do that. You do not want to guarantee a result, because you know what? As you well know, you're not in charge of results. You're not in charge. The jury is in charge of results, or the judge is in charge of the results, or a mediator can help get in charge of the results. You can only influence results. And it's only that, by doing your best work, can you in any way help these clients. Don't promise things you can't deliver. There's this great line from the Sermon on the Mount. It's in the first several verses. And I'm paraphrasing it. But it goes like this. Let your yeses be yeses, and your noes be noes. Let your yeses be yeses, and your noes be noes. That's it. Just say so. If you can help them, say so. If you can't help them, say so. But for goodness sake, do not overpromise if you can't deliver. If I hadn't told a client that I could get him a certain amount of money, I would never have sent it. I would never have sent it. If I hadn't told a client certain results, which were not true, that we could get, I would not have said things that were false. All I had to do from the beginning was say, I don't know. I'm going to do the best I can. That's all I can do. That's it. I think the client would have been happy with that. Or if not, what's the client going to do? Go somewhere else? I guess so. But that would be okay. We've got about 5 or 6 minutes left in this 1 hour program. I have one last question. What kind of promises should you make to clients? What kind of promises should you make to clients? And I think the answer is you only make promises that you can keep. You do not overpromise. You do not guarantee a result. So to summarize where I am on this first hour, I think you will have a happier and more successful law practice if you start out today with this idea that it is an honor, frankly, for a client to call you, to come see you, to pay you money, to represent them on something that is so important to them that they're willing to part with money to do so. It is an absolute honor for you to do that. And you owe them your best. You need to build, keep, and maintain a level of trust with your client. You want your client to be your best advocate when he or she is no longer your client. You want to grow your law practice by word of mouth, by your past clients. You want them to think you were the best. And if someone else asks them, how was your lawyer on building and keeping a trusting relationship with you You want them to say, great. Did they call you back? Yes. Did they communicate with you often? Yes. Did they listen to you? Yes. Did they give you hope? Yes. Did they overpromise anything or guarantee a result to you? No. Do you think they paid attention to whatever you said? Yes. These are the kinds of answers you want clients to give. You don't want some hesitancies there. You want them to say the right answers to all of these things. If you do that, if you tell clients the truth, if you tell your clients that the truth is the greatest asset that they as clients themselves have, if you do that, then your chances of getting into trouble with the client are greatly reduced, and your chances of having a better result for that client are greatly increased. If you let your yeses be yeses and your nos be nos, if you do not overpromise or guarantee results, if you do not tell stories or things that are untrue, if you do not make stuff up, if you do your best and work and act with passion, if you listen to your clients, if you trust them that it's an honor for them to call and represent them, and you are always there for them, you're going to have, frankly, a really successful, happy law practice. Now, this is true whether you have been practicing law for a year, you're just starting out, you're an associate in a law firm, you're a partner, you're starting a new career, you're close to retirement. So long as you have not yet quit, so long as you're still practicing law, so long as you're still going to the office every day or every other day, you have a chance to start over again today. You have a chance to start over again today. I would say to you that it is an honor for you to be able to practice law. It's a privilege. It's not a right. It's not guaranteed to you. It's a privilege that you have and you get to enjoy, so long as you handle yourself in a way that you would like to be treated if you were the client. And that's really the best rule. That's really the rule that should be followed the most. Have you treated your client the way that you would wish to be treated if you were in fact the lawyer or the attorney or the paralegal for that client? That concludes this particular 1 hour of starting over today.